Every finance influencer on the internet is telling you the same thing. Do not buy a house. Do not buy a car. Put everything into index funds. Never do a fixed deposit. Rent everything. Optimize every rupee. And the very same person telling you not to buy a house uploads a reel of their new bungalow the next morning. Here is what they are getting wrong. Finance is not math. Finance is personal. And personal means it is different for every single person on this planet. The numbers on a spreadsheet will never capture what money actually does to a human being. Because money is not just a tool for building wealth. Money is tied to your ego, your identity, your freedom, your fear, and your deepest insecurities. And until you understand the psychology underneath the math, no spreadsheet in the world will ever help you make a genuinely good decision about money. This video is not a finance video. This is a psychology video. And the 5 frameworks I am going to share with you in the next few minutes come from the best book I have read this year on this subject. Not about how to invest. About how to think. Because thinking right about money is worth more than any tip about which stock to buy. The first framework is the one that settles the biggest myth in personal finance once and for all. Can money buy happiness? I think the answer is yes. And I say that from personal experience. When I got my first paycheck, the amount was not life-changing. But the feeling was. Because along with the money came something that no one can put a price on. Freedom. The freedom to not ask anyone for anything. The freedom to make a small decision entirely on your own terms. That feeling has nothing to do with the size of the number. It has everything to do with what that number represents. And no philosopher who has never had to worry about money will ever fully understand that feeling. But here is where it gets complicated. Money can buy happiness. But only until comparison enters the room. There was a famous experiment where 100,000 people were asked to choose between 2 scenarios. In one scenario, you earn 50,000 rupees a month, but your friend earns 100,000. In the other scenario, you earn 25,000, but your friend also earns 25,000. 8 out of 10 people chose the second option. Less money, but equal money. Think about what that reveals. 8 out of 10 people would rather have less as long as no one around them has more. That is not rational. That is human. Because money in the real world is never just a number on a screen. It is a mirror. It shows you where you stand relative to everyone around you. And the moment you start using money as a measurement tool instead of a living tool, the entire equation breaks. In the 1920s, after World War I, America was recovering from a devastating recession. People were struggling to afford bread. Then within 8 years the economy turned around, stock markets boomed, and suddenly people had money again. And a fascinating headline appeared in the newspapers of that era. The more you were humiliated while poor, the more you enjoy displaying your wealth. Whatever you were denied during the hard years, you want to show the world you have now. Think about someone in your extended family. Maybe they lived in a small rented flat their whole life. Then they took a loan, bought a big house, and now they host a party every weekend. Not necessarily because they love hosting. Because showing people that they made it feels like finally exhaling after holding your breath for 20 years. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. That feeling is human and it is real. What is wrong is when a 23-year-old finance influencer on the internet reduces that decision to a compound interest calculation and calls it irrational. Because the CAGR of happiness and the CAGR of belonging and the CAGR of self-worth do not appear on any Excel sheet. The second framework is what I call the more trap. There is a concept from economics called the law of diminishing marginal utility. Imagine you love apples and you are hungry. The first apple is magnificent. The second is still good. The third is fine. By the fifth you are forcing yourself. By the sixth your body is actively rejecting it. Each additional apple gives you less satisfaction than the one before. The same law applies to every purchase you make. The first nice watch feels incredible. The second is exciting. By the time you have a collection of 15, you are not enjoying watches anymore. You are managing them. But brands have figured out how to hack this law. They introduce variety. New colors. Limited editions. Seasonal drops. The sneaker companies launch new colorways every few months. The watch companies release a limited run of the same design in a slightly different metal. And your brain treats it as something genuinely new even when it is essentially the same thing. Your dopamine does not know the difference between a real new experience and a superficial variation of an old one. This is the point where money stops serving you. This is the point where you start serving money. You are no longer spending because something adds value to your life. You are spending because the act of spending gives you a temporary rush. A famous rapper in an interview admitted he owns pairs of shoes worth hundreds of thousands of dollars that he has never taken out of the box. A famous actor said he receives 10 packages from Amazon every day and does not open most of them. He does not need anything. He just needs the feeling of clicking buy. The dopamine hit of acquisition. The purchase itself has become the product. And here is the insight that actually changes how you think about money. The most valuable thing is not the object you could buy. It is the optionality that comes from not buying it. Money sitting in your account is freedom. It is options. It is the ability to say no to a bad job, yes to an opportunity, or nothing at all if nothing comes along worth saying yes to. That is the real job of money, not the things it buys, the freedom it creates. The third framework is thoughtful spending. And this is where we stop talking about what not to do and start talking about what actually works. The problem with how most people spend is not that they spend too much. It is that they spend on the wrong things. Things that feel exciting for one day and then become invisible. The new car smell fades in a week. The new phone becomes just a phone within a month. The new clothes hang in the closet after 3 wears. Modern life has so thoroughly optimized for getting you to spend that the average person today is spending on things they barely notice while cutting back on things that would genuinely improve their lives. So here is the 2-step framework that actually works. Step 1. Observe what genuinely makes you happy. Not what you think should make you happy. Not what influencers say makes successful people happy. What actually makes you happy based on your own honest history with your own life. I have loved gaming since I was a child. When I bought a PlayStation 5, the price was not the question I was asking myself. The question I was asking was whether this would genuinely add joy to my life. The answer was yes, because I knew from decades of personal history that it would. I also own a Royal Enfield. Not because it is the most financially optimal transportation decision. Because I wanted one since I was a teenager and buying it with my own money connected to something real and personal inside me. I do not post about it to perform wealth. I ride it because I love it. You are allowed 2 or 3 expenses like this. Expenses that do not need to be rationalized to anyone, including yourself. They are yours. They are personal. Spend on them without guilt as long as they are within your actual means. Step 2 is what I call show off the inside, not the outside. Naval Ravikant has a line that stays with me. A calm mind, a fit body, and a house full of love. That is real wealth. Because none of those things can be purchased directly. They have to be built. The number of rooms in your house is a number. The quality of the relationships inside those rooms is what your life actually consists of. In 2016, a woman was caught committing a fraud that perfectly illustrates the absurdity of status spending. She was buying genuine luxury bags from high-end stores, swapping them with near-perfect counterfeit versions, and returning the fakes for full refunds. Then she sold the real bags online. She stole over $400,000 this way. And here is the detail that matters. The counterfeit bags were so good that the store employees themselves could not tell the difference. So if the people who sell these bags cannot identify whether a bag is real, and the people passing you on the street certainly cannot, then what exactly are you paying for when you spend 50 times the functional price? You are paying for the story you tell yourself about who you are. You are paying for a logo. And logos can be faked by a factory in Guangzhou for $12. Your spending falls into 2 categories. Utility spending and status spending. A basic watch that tells time is utility. A Rolex that tells the same time is status. And there is nothing inherently wrong with status spending as long as you are honest with yourself about what you are actually buying. The problem is when status spending masquerades as utility spending and you convince yourself the Rolex is a better watch rather than a more expensive Signal. The 4th framework is the one that dismantles almost every finance guru who has ever told you how to live. Finance is personal. Morgan Housel writes in The Art of Spending Money that a large percentage of financial advice on the internet is technically correct and practically useless. Not because the information is wrong, but because it was not made for you. It was made for an imaginary average person who does not exist. Finance influencers tell you not to buy a bike, to buy the shares of the bike company instead, and watch your wealth compound. This advice fails for two reasons. First, if you need a bike to commute, shares do not solve your commuting problem. You are not making a financial decision. You are making a utility decision. A bike gets you to work. A share certificate does not. Second, and this is the part nobody says out loud, if everyone decided to buy shares of the bike company instead of buying bikes, the bike company would have no customers, no revenue, and the shares would be worthless. The advice only works if most people do not follow it. The same influencers told you fixed deposits were for people who did not understand money. Then the market corrected and every short-term mutual fund delivered negative returns while the boring fixed deposit sat there quietly earning its 3 or 4%. Timing matters. Context matters. Your specific situation matters. And no piece of advice optimized for an audience of 1 million people can possibly be optimized for you specifically. The fifth and final framework is the most practical one. It is called spending performance. And the question at the center of it is this: am I spending or am I performing? There was a moment when uploading a Starbucks cup to Instagram made you look a certain way. Now it does not even register. There was a moment when an orange iPhone was a statement. Now it looks like everyone else's phone. Trends perform and then they expire. And the people who bought the trend did not get any lasting value from the purchase. They got a temporary social signal that depreciated to zero within months. You know you are performing when you think about what other people will think before you decide whether to buy something. You know you are spending when you would make the same purchase even if no one would ever see it or know about it. Ramit Sethi has a line that cuts through everything. Spend extravagantly on what you love and mercilessly cut what you do not. Not a moderate amount on everything. Everything on a few things and nothing on the rest. Here is the simplest exercise I know for making this real. Write down 10 things you spend money on that are wants rather than needs. Put them in order from the one that brings you the most genuine satisfaction to the one that brings you the least. Keep the top 5. Fund them without guilt. Cut the bottom 5 without mercy. And anytime you start drifting back towards spending on the bottom 5, the list reminds you of the choice you already made when you were thinking clearly. Personal finance, like the word says, is personal. The best financial decision you can ever make is the one that fits your actual values, your actual life, and your actual history with what makes you genuinely happy. Not the decision that scores the highest on someone else's spreadsheet. Stop optimizing for the spreadsheet. Start optimizing for your life. The money is yours. You earned it. The decision of how to spend it should be entirely yours too.